Hello, my name is Sherry Smith, and this is Franklin Boulevard Media. I'm from right here in Gastonia, North Carolina, born at Gastonia Negro Hospital, which is now, I think, a nursing home right here in Gastonia, and raised for the first 14 years of my life on Robinwood Road, also known as, and hopefully affectionately known as, Dogtown. It was April 2014. I was with my daughter Angel up in Virginia, and I was preparing to come home. She was going to bring me halfway down the road, and my husband was going to pick me up and take me back. But I was in the mirror doing some things, and I happened to lift my arm, and one of my breasts lifted up. And I kept doing it. It's just unusual for it to happen. And I had a lump growing underneath it. Well, I've had a cyst before in my right breast, and so I thought maybe that was it. So it took me a few days before I called my primary care. And of course, they were in denial that I had any type of cancer. I underwent all types of tests and labs and all kinds of things. I even called that office one time to still complain because it was growing. And the lady who answered said, "Oh, it's probably not cancer." However, what she didn't realize was, of course, I am going to be on Google, which people call Dr. Google, and everywhere else, diagnosing myself with the worst type of cancer possible. It was finally my primary care at that time sent me to see Dr. Sandra Schultz, who did this was July the 3rd. Now, this we're talking from April to July 3rd. And she did a biopsy on the lump. As a matter of fact, she had my mammogram film, couldn't see a thing, not one thing. And so she did a ultrasound in her office, and she saw it, and she did a biopsy, sent it off. I went through this 4th of July celebration with my niece in Raleigh, came back, went to Virginia to visit my daughter again, came back on July 9th, and went to see Dr. Schultz, my husband and I, and that's when she came in and told me that I indeed had cancer. And then I didn't respond, I didn't cry or anything. I just looked at her because I'd already looked this stuff up. And she said, "You knew, didn't you?" I said, "Yes." And so I got to walk out that day, July 9th, 2014, with my little book, the handbook they give all of the new cancer patients, walk out of there with it sort of close to my chest and get in the car and start pondering what my future would be. I chose to have a mastectomy on the right side, and that happened on August 4th, I believe, 2014. And it was a party in that little preparation room. I don't know how all of those people got in there, but there were quite a few people, including my neighbor, Joe, who's a deacon at his church. My preacher could not get there, but my Joe, who used to live across the street from me, that man said quite a prayer for me. And then when they took me down to the operating room, it was like Mardi Gras. I was riding on the stretcher, doing the Windsor wave to all the people, and I had a crowd following behind me. What was missing was the music, the confetti, and, of course, the Kool-Aid punch. We didn't have that. But that's where it took me, and then later on, I don't really remember that, but they put me in a large room, I guess because one of my friends, Travolia, who is Treaty Hill, who's a friend of mine, had told them that I had a lot of family, so they put me in one of those large rooms at the end of the hall. And I understand they had a good time while I laid there sleeping. So what started off as a party ended up being surgeries after surgeries, chemotherapy, and radiation, 9 months out of work, sickness, darkness. But through it all, I maintained a smile because I knew that God wasn't ready for me yet, and I had other things on this earth to do. I don't know what all it is to do, but I knew he had me. And so as I was laying there, some days having meltdowns, some days not having meltdowns. I think I heard somebody say something about sitting in a recliner. Mine was called the Nest because after my mastectomy, I couldn't lie down. And so I sat in the guest room, which we called the geek room, in that recliner, in my nest. And that's where I healed. That's where I lost my hair. That's where I recuperated. And that's where I received guests. But that's pretty much in a nutshell my experience. I am now, well, that was 8 years ago. 2017, I was diagnosed again. Do you know I had a little pea-size something or another come up in the same spot. And Dr. Schultz again did a biopsy. It was cancer again. And it's sort of frustrating, but we went ahead and she scheduled me quickly and had a more surgery and had to wear a machine because it was so deep, a machine, and that was awful. And I did go back to work in April, and my hair had just grown back, and I was proud of being bald, by the way. I didn't like not having eyebrows and eyelashes, but the bald head, loved it. And anyway, where I am today, that's the question. And one more thing. I'm sorry, I'm shy. My road dogs. I got to mention my road dogs. My road dogs were my mother-in-law, Geraldine Smith, who Mr. Crank knows well. They are deadly enemies when it comes to Christmas decoration. And his mom, Jody, or Joanne Crank. And those are my road dogs. Everybody had, I guess they had a self-appointed mission to help me through this thing, but they were there to make sure I got to the doctor. I couldn't think. They asked the questions. Joanne, oh my God, she was magnificent. But anyway, they got me through that first phase. The second phase, I had the surgery. As a matter of fact, I had the surgery and went to work like on Friday and went back to work on that Monday or Tuesday because I had stuff I needed to close out for the month. But because of the second one, I now have to, I take scans, CT scans, every 3 or 4 months. That's one of the things I do. I go to the hospital. I've gone so much that the lady down in the registration doesn't know me by name. But I go get those. I am on, I have different oncologists now, but I am on, I get Faslodex shots, Faslodex or fulvestrant. That's not pretty. I cry every time, but I'm crying, I'm singing Earth, Wind, and Fire, the Itsy Bitsy Spider, telling bad jokes. But in the meantime, I have tears run because it hurts, one at each hip. And I take a medicine called Ibrance, and that's a 21-day regimen, 7 days off. And of course, like I said before, I do have the CT scans because they do say that I'm metastatic. Yes, they did find cancer originally in my lymph nodes, but at the time, back in 2014, Dr. Schultz didn't think that maybe I wouldn't have to have chemo and all. But when it was sent to the tumor board or some type of cancer board, they decided that I might want to consider taking chemo. And so that's what I did then. So the second time around, I was like, okay, Dr. Schultz, I just got some hair, what do I need to do? But she informed me that there are things out there now that won't necessarily affect my hair as far as taking it away. But isn't my hair lovely? I don't know whose hair this is, but I'll take it. It's easy to take care of. It's baby soft and smooth, a little thin. Yes, I call it wide parts. These are not bald spots. So that's where I am right now. I'm also, according to the scans that I get, I'm stable. The spots that they were watching that makes me metastatic have not grown, nor have they shrunken. And I always say that's what God intended. He's the one in control. I can't sit here and preach because that's not my calling, but I can tell you that God is real. And if you don't believe that, you might want to go back and search for him and try to find him again, because as far as I'm concerned, in my life, God is real. First of all, cancer is not a death sentence. Back in the old days, I remember, because I've had aunties on both sides of my family who had breast cancer and passed away. But technology it moves rapidly and it's great. I mean, there's all types of discoveries being made, all types of tests and trials that you even could participate in now. With those tests and trials, it may not help you, but it could help somebody else. But for somebody who's going through this thing, all I can tell you is, I can't tell you not to be afraid, because I was scared. But to know that being afraid is natural, but to don't be dismayed, because it's not necessarily a death sentence. I would also tell them to take heed to what their doctor is saying. And if that doctor is not doing the right thing, there are others out here that will. And to hopefully that find a good support group. Yes. My support group, there are several around town. But my support group is my family. I come from a large family. My husband comes from a large family. And they all just meld into one. At times with my family, you can't tell which side is which because they all get along great. But that was my way of coping and all. Everybody took upon themselves to have a role. I let them because I couldn't do it. But a good support group. If it can't be your family, your church family, I had that too. Other people's church families, my co-workers. I even had a co-worker who had me on an email list from her church in Shelby. These people were praying for me. I was getting email correspondence from them and all. Your neighbors. But if nothing else, call me. I'll be your support system. I and others like me, we're not necessarily connected to some of these networks or what have you, but you'll be amazed at the people out here who are also survivors who will take the time out of their day to give a listening ear. Sometimes it's all you need, somebody to listen while you cry or exhibit your anger. There are people who out there, sometimes you just want somebody to listen so you can just sort of get this all out, because it does work on you mentally also. And also, know your history. Know your genealogy. That's something else that I did. I'm sort of a genealogy buff in a sense, but I don't do it as much now. But I ask questions. One of the places that I did go to, they want to know my history. And by the time I got started telling them about all the different cancers within my siblings and my aunties and uncles and the people that I knew about, it was scary. And I've also had BRCA, B-R-C-A, that test. Of course, mine was inconclusive, which means that as part of my heredity or my DNA, it could be that this is a part of my genetic mutant, genetic mutant cell or DNA, or it could not, but it's inconclusive. Now, my sister, 2-3 years ago, also had breast cancer. She's older, and just that freaked me out. As a matter of fact, I was apologizing, but she had to let me realize that cancer is not contagious. Just because I had it does not mean that I passed it to her. Her BRCA test came out negative. So I don't know what's going on, but I can tell you, if in my family, there's a lot of cancer that has happened to people, both from my immediate family, extended family. It's there. Know your body. Know what's natural, what feels natural, what feels good, what feels wrong. In my case, like I said, I just in the mirror, just raising my arm and having a breast to raise up, that wasn't natural. And to have the growth underneath wasn't natural. To watch it, if you feel like there's something, a bump or anything that's unusual, to keep an eye on it. But in the meantime, contact your doctor. They've seen it all. But like I said, sometimes you get those doctors, I know I did, who I guess they get you in there and get you out, but then you're still suffering. But if you're not getting the answers, find somebody who will give you some answers. But definitely know your body.